The Echo Chamber, brought to you by The Holmes Report and produced by the international broadcast specialist Marketeers. Sponsored by the Bullet Group, putting you in tomorrow's conversations today.
Hello and welcome to the Echo Chamber. I am Diana Marszalek. I'm a senior reporter with the Holmes Report. And today I have Jeff Joseph with me. Jeff is the CEO of the Software and Information Industry Association, otherwise known as SIIA. Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us here on a rainy day.
It's very rainy, but it's good to be here. Thank you.
Good. I wonder if you could just fill us in to begin with about your association and your mission and what you're doing.
Sure. So SIIA, we represent about 800 companies across a wide range of markets. So we have companies that are in financial services, both the buy side and the sell side, so stock markets, the stock exchanges, and then the banks and brokers who purchase that data and information. We have companies in the education technology space. We have companies in B2B media, so large data providers like Dow Jones and Bloomberg, and then specialty publications like if you're engaged in, say, widget manufacturing and you have that must-read newsletter that only 2,000 people receive, but it's the must-read of the week, they're members of ours as well. And then software companies. So it's this interesting mix of companies in different markets, but really the connective tissue is data and information. Many of our member companies either produce, they interpret, they distribute data and information across all those different markets. And if you think about it, it's a really interesting place to be. The origins of our association started as representing software companies back in the 80s. The world's changed, but in some ways there's a parallel. In the 80s, it was all about software and hardware, and then with the evolution of technology, it came about connectivity with the internet, devices that connect to the internet, the first and second generation of disruptive companies, and now it's really about data and information. Every company is engaged in data information, and that's where we sit. So it's a really exciting place to be.
So what's your membership like? I mean, data information is a very big...
Right.
I don't know what it is, but it could be a gazillion.
That's the excitement and the challenge, right?
Right. And you, we're talking today a little bit about the CODiE Awards, right? This is kind of the premier, one of the industry awards. You're like the Oscars of data and information, or the Emmys, right? So what can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So the CODiE's, this is actually the 35th anniversary. You put it very well. I'm glad you used those words. These are the preeminent awards program in the software industry, specifically in business and in education. So we look at a variety of categories from marketing to service providing to analytics, and we have, it's the only peer reviewed program in software. So it has this stellar reputation of really being the high volume, the Oscars, the Emmys, the Tonys, whatever, of software development.
The Sabre Awards, which is ours.
The Sabre Awards. There you go. Sorry, Paul. Yes, the Sabre Awards.
So 35 years. I went online and I looked at some of the awards past to see how they have evolved, and these are my favorite. Some of them from the beginning. Best new use of a computer.
You're aging us, but yes. Right?
Yes. I think that was one of the inaugural awards, which was PageMaker. Best adaptation from another medium, the new electronic encyclopedia.
Oh, wow.
So how have you, going back with the awards, I mean, you did mention a little bit about how the association has changed, but really this is a marker of how technology has changed, right?
That's a great way to put it. Again, sort of that evolution from the box software that some of us may remember to now it's just everywhere, right? Software and data is everywhere. So we can look back and see those early awards. There was the best worldwide web applet in 1991.
I saw that too. I saw that one too.
Yeah, the best 16-bit graphics. So, but when I look back at that, it makes me proud, right? That we were there at the beginning, and that what we now laugh at. I mean, those were huge innovative developments back in the 80s and 90s, right? And we recognize them, and we help that market develop and grow by shining a spotlight. So today we try to make sure that the awards reflect the new technology. So, for example, this year we'll have the best artificial intelligence solution. Taking opportunities there. So we're always constantly working with our judges, working with our applicants, working with our member companies to make sure that we're representing the latest technological trends so that we're staying on top of the latest innovations innovations.
So the scope of awards must have changed. The categories. I mean, how many categories have you grown from into?
It's broadened so much, and we cover so many categories now. If I look at just in our business technology, there's over 40 some odd categories, from business tools to data and analytics that wouldn't have existed back when we first started. Network and systems, security obviously is huge. If we look at education, it's sort of those administrative solutions for managing classrooms or managing student information, to approaches for special learners, those students who need a different non-traditional approach, to core academic solutions and authoring and curating data. So again, it's very broad, but always sort of reflecting the latest innovations and the latest trends in both business and educational software.
And just so much more sophisticated. I mean, I was looking back at education too, and it was like, was it Where in the World was Carmen?
Carmen Sandiego, right? Oh gosh,
that one won a lot of awards,
but deservedly so, right? It was
Absolutely.
innovative at the time and revolutionary. So we want to make sure that whatever that next Carmen Sandiego, we talk a lot internally about Excel, Microsoft Excel, that we now sort of take an electronic spreadsheet is just another application, right? But it was revolutionary at the time. So what's that next generation of Carmen Sandiegos? What's that next generation of Excel spreadsheets that's really driving innovation in education and business technology?
And yet there are some that are consistent, right? That still show up. So Microsoft was there in the beginning.
Right. Yeah.
I was surprised to see SimCity, I think, was there early on.
SimCity, right. Uh-huh.
But these still have longevity. I mean, well, Microsoft, obviously it's evolved, but there are, what are the companies that you have seen over time that are the steadfasts?
Yeah. Well, that's a great way to put it. And we could measure some of those early groundbreaking companies that really established a foothold that we recognized early on that are still engaged with us. So Microsoft is a great example. Red Hat Solutions, Adobe software everyone knows. We have a number that have been with us that continue to innovate and evolve. And what's fun is then trying to guess, all right, what's going to be the next Microsoft? What's the next great innovation that's going to come through? IBM TurboTax is a past winner. Apple, obviously. So we can celebrate that past and really build upon that foundation. But what's particularly exciting is, what's that next question? What's that next generation? Who's going to be the next Microsoft? Who's going to be the next Red Hat?
So do you guys sit around the office and name in a hat and guess? And
I would not say that I've built my stock portfolio off of good guesses, but it is exciting to see those new technologies. And I think sometimes we take for granted what awards can mean, right? It's another awards program. But when we see the winners go up, and there's such pride, right? When you see the software developer or the innovator, and it becomes a great marketing opportunity, obviously. Just being recognized by one's peers is always a great pat on the back and a great sign of success. And the opportunity to gain additional funding for startups and small companies that need it. So that it's exciting to sort of see both the technology, but it's also exciting to see the honorees and how they grow and just how much it can mean to them to get such a coveted award.
Absolutely. And when is the 35th and where? Tell us.
The 35th will be held in San Francisco. We always do it around our education conference. So we're coming up on a number of deadlines. We're actually currently in an early round of nominations that'll go through actually in the 10th, and then our regular nomination period will run through January 3rd, and then the winners are announced May 18th and 19th in San Francisco.
Excellent. So how do you keep it going? Do the CODiEs have a life of their own? Does the association have a life of its own at this point? It probably does.
Well,
but how do you keep the enthusiasm? A changing industry. Trade associations can get sort of staid. But you're in a world that's constantly developing and constantly changing. And you're CEOing now, but I know your background is in communications.
Right.
So you got the whole thing going on.
So
how? Yes. So lucky you.
Yeah,
that's all
indeed,
on you.
Indeed.
So how do you keep it going, or does it have the prestige and
that's a great question.
Have legs, as they say?
Yeah, so I think there's sort of two parts to that you asked, and one is about the awards program. And we're taking a renewed look at the awards program to make sure that it's fresh, that we are that our product categories, for example, do truly represent the latest innovations and what's coming next, right? We always want to be a little bit ahead of ourselves. So what I say is that we have such a great history, as you've heard, but we need to repolish the brand brand. We need to reintroduce the brand. So we're doing things like this to sort of reintroduce the CODies to a new audience, to reach out to marketers and PR professionals to help them understand for their clients or for their companies what this can mean, why the CODies are important. And we're holding tomorrow night in New York. We're having our first sort of meetup of those who are applying and some past winners, so they can exchange ideas about, how do I make sure that my application is strong, and how do I take advantage of if should I win, how do I take advantage and leverage that. We just brought on a PR firm to work with us to help us rebrandish and retell our story. So a lot of it is PR 101 and just going out and telling our story to different audiences. And we're looking for different partnerships where we don't have expertise. So if we think of, what are the implications of say, quantum computing on some of these software applications. We don't know that world, so we're looking for partnerships who can help us identify new innovative companies and better understand. So that's the CODies. With the association, it is a fascinating time. It's a difficult time for associations. Young people, they have different ways of, you have children around the same age as mine. They communicate, they connect in different ways. So we're asking ourselves, how do we make sure that we're meeting them where they already are instead of trying to pull them into our world? How do we meet them where they are? And how do we provide value in a different way? Is it networking? Is it educational opportunities? Is it career advancement? Information? What do they need that we can provide? So that's sort of one challenge. Our organization has a unique challenge. This is my third trade association, which is, you'd ask me when I graduated college, what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to be a trade association executive.
Not a bad gig. You said you're in this technology world. I know you
Right.
said CES, which is if you want technology, you got technology. And your third association
It was
was
biotech, the Biotechnology
Okay.
Industry Organization in Washington. So always innovative industries,
Right.
in healthcare and in consumer technology, and now broader technology, data, media. So it's always been in that. But because we have these disparate markets from finance to education to software to media, what's the whole? What's the story we tell, and how do we provide value? So I'm so excited about this intersection of data and information and media and content, because to your point, that's where everyone is. And so if we can provide value for our current members by connecting them. I was just at our education conference today, and we had a phenomenal keynote on diversity and equity. That's a keynote that all our members need to hear. Every company is doing, particularly technology companies, are really struggling with, how do we do the right thing? How do we make sure that we are advancing and moving forward with our diversity and equity initiatives, and beyond, not just about gender identification, not just about education or ethnicity, but also about diversity of thought, right? So that's an area where we as this broad association can help our members understand and maybe learn from each other. What's working in education that may be applicable in B2B media or vice versa? What's working in finance that may not work in tech or vice versa? So that's a value add that we provide. We're looking at the impact of new technologies. We mentioned AI. Again, AI is not just impacting education, but it's impacting all these other industries. So we can help be a thought leader or convene them together to share thoughts. And then finally, in the area of policy, public policy, I'm from Washington. I have to
You got to get it in.
I got to get it in, right? Exactly. If I was in New York, it'd be about finance, LA, entertainment. I'm a DC guy. What can I say?
We accept that.
Right. So if we look at the policy issues that are impacting all our members, data privacy, data security, that's an area where we can really provide a value and a benefit for all our members by representing all of them and their broad interests. Even though each section has specific interests, education is different, again, than privacy and education with children, different than financial, but there is an intersection there. There's some commonality, so we can lead in that area. So I think it's an incredibly exciting time to sort of reintroduce this organization, revitalize it, and if we really build around data and information, then we can go many different places. Healthcare. Healthcare is about access, but it's also about data information and privacy and security. Smart cities. Just on and on and on. Retail. Everything is about data information. So what can we do? How can we create an association that attracts these young people, brings in new entrants, and provides the value and benefits of this connective tissue?
So how's it going? I know you're not in the job that long, so it takes a while. I know, but I imagine there's got to be some sort of division. You got these young companies coming in that are the be all end all or whatever. But they're also now facing the real tasks, like the privacy issues and everything. maybe being deflated a little bit. And then you've got sort of the older, more established companies that grew up with technology. I mean, are you seeing a division, or is it hard to get people in?
Well, it's a very astute question, and so one of the challenges is that currently, and for our organization, this is probably true for others, that when many of the member companies join, they join for that business unit. So I'm in ed tech. I know that I have to go to the conferences here in New York. I've got to be there. That's the place to be. In our financial services division, I've got to be at their global conference. That's where everyone's going to be and learn. But what's this other thing? What's this SIIA thing? So that's what we're trying to educate and build that value. You can get what you need in education here, but if you want to deal with these larger business concerns or find commonality across an opportunity, that's where we can provide value. So there are those members who I often talk about the forest and the trees. Sorry to be trite, but some of our members they want to hold onto their tree and hug the tree, and that's great. We love our trees. You got to feed it, water it, blah blah blah. But if we're going to grow the tree, I need you to help me grow the forest. I need you to touch your tree, know it's there, but help me look and develop the forest. Because the better we all do, the more we can invest back into that individual tree and help that grow. So there's always that sort of challenge. There's also some tension. We represent technology companies who are in some ways competing with some of these traditional media companies. We all know the story around ad dollars and the fight for eyeballs. So there's some tension there. But if we can convince them that if we all do better, if we all move forward together, if we address some of these policy issues, if we address some of these technology challenge issues, if we sit down in non-competitive environments just to get to know each other and exchange ideas, that there's opportunities there. And that's why I'm excited again. There's so much opportunity. And we are sitting on this gold mine. Again, data really is the currency of the modern economy, of the tech economy, whatever you want to call it. And that's where we can sit and play a role in some leadership.
It's also so big. I mean, it's making what you must do, what you must deal with. It makes my head spin. But I'm not the technologist. So, but I found what you were saying about competition being interesting. I mean, how I don't want to say siloed. I don't like that word. Is everything siloed? But the industry, how much is there of like an industry pulling together?
Yeah, well, there hasn't been, and that's been one of the challenges that each, again, just in our world,
right.
That each of these divisions have done well for the most part on their own, and they develop these really strong communities. I love going into the events, and it's like when you're going to see us in a few weeks, and you'll see this. Old friends come together; they see each other once a year. Maybe they work together or they've crossed paths, and we don't want to lose the vibrancy of those individual communities. But if we don't build something bigger, if we don't provide that value overall, then why have this organization? So it's an existential question in some ways. So the opportunities I think are greater than the individual challenges.
And I often hear that every company is a technology company.
That's right. Right. To your point.
So where do you draw the line on your?
Well, so we first have to start with what we have, and we have to show that value for our current members before we think about growing elsewhere. But I try to think of concentric circles and what makes sense and where do we have expertise. I mentioned healthcare because I think there's an opportunity there. The healthcare is so divided. So if I want to deal with privacy and data in a healthcare or a hospital setting, I know where to go. I go to the American Hospital Association, right? If I'm a pharma company, a biopharma company, I'm dealing with clinical trial data or whatever, and there's a privacy regime around that, a regulatory regime around that. I know where to go. But if I'm dealing more in the macro sense, or those sections aren't talking to each other, then that can be a place where we can be a convener for them, as well as what can I learn from these other business units that are dealing with, again, in a different sectorial way, but they're dealing with many of the same issues of I'm collecting all this information. How do I ensure that I'm being transparent with those I'm collecting it from? How do I make sure it's secure? How do I monetize it in a way that is legitimate and that respects my commitment to privacy? And as we look at both at federal, at state, and even at global privacy regimes, how can we learn from each other and come in together to make sure that we're all protected?
Is that I was going to ask you, looking ahead at 2020, what are the biggest, what do you see ahead in terms of the biggest issues facing the companies, and also what you're hearing from consumers, regulatory? Maybe it's what you've already just mentioned in data and privacy, but
it's from a technology perspective, I think all these there's a lot of buzzwords. People talk about AI and they talk about machine learning. What does that really mean? And
you tell me.
Well, we can go deep into that, but how does it impact these companies, right? Again, like quantum computing, I hear it, but how's it going to impact my business? So trying to help our companies navigate that and make it make business sense, or even at a more practical level. If I'm not worrying about these big issues, I'm worried about, from the media side, how do I make money these days, right?
Yes.
How do I compete? You're a journalist, right? So helping them understand that. How do I develop talent? How do I draw talent into when I'm competing? If a young person comes out of school and they've got a choice to go into tech or they have a choice to go into journalism, how do we compete so we continue to build the talent pool? So sort of that level where we can try to help and learn, and that's certainly on our radar for the coming year. And then that sort of level of technology from a policy perspective, I think certainly in Washington, a lot of the air is being sucked up by current events.
You think?
Yeah, you have to be an insider to sort of get that. But we're paying close attention to a potential federal privacy bill. I mean, it's unfortunate that everything has become political because it really shouldn't be political, right?
Right.
It should be nonpartisan, and we've seen a lot of proposals, some of which are bipartisan. So we should be able to build there. Digital trade is important to us. So as a media company, if I store my data in the United States, but I have customers in Canada, how's that ruled? How's that judged? Can I move it from one to the other? What rights do I need to follow? So we're looking at the trade agreements. This new U.S., Mexico, Canada trade agreement has some really good provisions that are modernize these trade agreements to account for technology issues such as data location. So that's a big issue. So yeah, it's a lot. That's sort of from that practical, how do I make money and survive, to these sort of big policy issues, to the impact of technology, to even again some of these large business issues around workforce development. How are we competing in an environment where technology is changing the workforce, to these issues of diversity and inclusion.
Do you have a big support staff? Are you good at distributing the? I mean, I don't know how
well, no, you're to your point,
head.
right? Like, well,
how can you?
I don't know. Well, we're going through triage right now and talking to our members about what truly is important.
Okay,
Where can we add value?
Prioritize, right?
Prioritize, and then it's that old bad joke about how to eat a whale one bite at a time,
yes,
right?
Right?
So we're beginning to sort of identify what needs to come first, and it's a balance of the three. I mean, those sort of day-to-day business issues are real. How do I make money? How do I compete? How do we make sure we're being efficient and provide value to our customers, for our members? And then there are these big technological trends and societal trends and these big policy issues. But that's our role as an association, to help our members understand and navigate. And if we can't provide solutions, helping them find solutions. And that's why, again, I think bringing them all together where they can identify those common threads will be helpful and beneficial. And that's a value we can provide.
Excellent. Are you a tech guy or a communicator or both? Like, how do you? What's your?
Yeah, no, all. I am fortunate enough that I have always. I'm very blessed. I've always had the opportunity to work in really interesting areas. I love the art of the science of communication. How do you craft a story in a way that resonates? And what I found is that what works is PR as a marketing tool. Those same fundamentals carry over to the government affairs world. The same fundamentals carry over to the way I want to communicate with internal staff and members. What's the message? How do I? What's the action item? How do I motivate? What are the tools to do that? What are the vehicles? I mean, those same sort of baseline questions translate across, and I love that. I think technology has gotten a lot of bad rap lately, and sometimes deservedly so. Right? We have issues that we haven't addressed. The analogy I make is that for so long we're these cute little babies, right? And like, oh, they're so adorable and they smell good and they're growing up and they're doing these awesome things. And now we're teenagers.
And you're yuck.
Look, there's some good, right? You see them become their own people. But there's a lot of yuck as well. And so part of our role as an association is to help both defend our industry because, my gosh, I mean, look where we are now. We couldn't have done this 20 years ago, right? To sit in a small room and have a conversation that millions of people can hopefully, theoretically hear. We hold these devices in our hands that give us access to entertainment, to education, to connect us. And it's an amazing thing. It's that bad Louis C.K. joke where he says, every now and then you sit in an airplane and people complain about there's no Wi-Fi, the food stinks, but you're flying.
I like that, right?
Right? You're in a machine, you're flying. We're communicating on these devices, right?
Right.
So we have to recognize the value and the benefit and the economic transformation that we've caused, the number of jobs that we've created and opportunities, the markets that have grown. When I was young, there was no such thing as a data programmer or web developer. Those are real career paths now for people. That's a great story to tell. At the same time, we have to recognize we have a lot of work to do in diversity, for example. We have a lot of fundamental questions. How do we make sure that we are taking care of people and training people as technology displaces jobs, and making sure that it's complementary and not just creating disruption, negative disruption? How do we deal with privacy concerns? How do we deal with the proper use of social media platforms and keeping out negative elements or efforts to divide us or to disrupt our democratic principles, democratic processes? Screen time. I mean, just on and on and on.
Right.
There's so many issues to address. So we have to be proactive in recognizing that there are challenges and that we don't have all the solutions, but we have to be at the table to provide solutions and willing to have that discussion. And we have to keep coming back to, we do good things. We're not all bad. We're not just out all night drinking, Mom. We're doing our schoolwork. We're revolutionizing the world. We're helping.
One last question. What sort of wows you? Like, what have you seen lately, heard lately? What's coming through in the awards that, is amazing? Yeah,
that's a fair question. It's too early now. We're literally just in the early nomination period, so I haven't seen it. But yeah, this sounds like a cop-out, but it's really not. What I see is opportunity and creativity and innovation. When we go to these awards, as I go around the country and I speak to people and I hear their stories of just, you can sit in your garage, you can sit in your bedroom and create something. That's amazing, right? You can go to a maker shop and create something. The opportunities to market, the opportunities to collaborate and find partners, they go beyond the boundaries of time and space, right? It's just unbelievable. And so, it's not necessarily one specific thing, but it's that energy that we have that we can't lose. Not to be too nationalistic or whatever, but it is part of our special sauce in this country is innovation and leading in innovation. And I worry sometimes that we lose sight of that. And we really need to invest and make sure that we've got the right framework to allow for that to go on. Because it is happening, but we could lose it as quickly as we have. So that's what keeps me excited.
Well, it's nice to hear because I know you're CEO, but you're a fan. Like you're into this. You're raring to go.
It's we sit at this great place from our media companies who are in this age of what is quality news and what is fake news. We represent companies that are providing high quality information, like must read information and data and news. That's really exciting. We represent these companies who are supporting our financial markets, and that's exciting. We represent these ed tech companies that are recognizing that not every student learns the same and are coming up with innovative solutions, or simply making it easier to order pencils. Like even at that, that's a really cool and fun place to be. And we as staff get to play a small role in this new world and these innovations, and that's pretty cool.
Sounds like a good role.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I appreciate you joining us. We
Thanks
will
for
follow
having
the
me.
evolution of the organization and I can say technology, but
Right.
not. So good luck with the next awards. We'll follow you, and we'll look forward to talking again.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Bye.
You've been listening to The Echo Chamber. Brought to you by The Holmes Report and produced by Marketeers. Sponsored by the Bullet Group, putting you in tomorrow's conversations today.